How's it going, everybody? Hey, thank you for joining us today. We're so excited about this series, Live Differently. We're in the book of Daniel. I'm going to be picking up in Daniel chapter 3, verse 12 and 13, just two verses for you. This is what it says. It says, "But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, your majesty. They refuse to serve your gods and do not worship the gold statue you have set up." Verse 13. "Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage," I love those words, "and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. When they were brought in." What a great set of scriptures here. Most of you know the context that the Babylonians had exiled some Jews out of Jerusalem. And just a reminder, the Babylonians were brutal. Man, they were rough to those that they captured. They wanted to deconstruct culture completely. They wanted to strip away identity, and they wanted to make them not unified. And so one thing that's taken place is that the king at the time, Nebuchadnezzar, he builds this massive statue, and he says, anytime you hear these instruments, you must bow down and worship me. Now, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had all been placed in a leadership position, as well as Daniel, if you're familiar with the book of Daniel. And then these people that are Babylonians go to King Nebuchadnezzar and says, hey, these guys are not obeying you. They're worshiping their God. And that's what sets up this scene. And I want to just give you just one main thought today. Just one simple truth that I believe is so important for us as followers of Christ. And it's this: obedience stirs some things up. When you and I obey God, it stirs things up around us. Part of that is a great thing. It stirs up the attention of God. In fact, the Bible says in 1 John, these are some really incredible words. The writer of 1 John, John, the beloved disciple, says that if you want to know if you love God, then just see if you obey God. It's very straightforward. Obedience is a sign of love. And the Bible also talks about in Chronicles that the eyes of the Lord search to and fro across the earth for those who are faithfully searching after Him, people who are obeying Him. So it stirs up the attention of the Lord, which is awesome. Can you imagine that as we obey God, that the Lord sees us and is pleased? He always loves us, but to think that He's pleased with my actions and your actions when we obey Him. But it also, and this is maybe the most key point in this text, is when we obey God, it stirs up the enemy as well. And I want you to not think just from the standpoint of the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar. Now, in fact, they for sure were not pleased with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But when it comes to spiritual matters, the enemy of your soul, the workers of darkness, spirits of darkness, demonic spirits, when we as God's people obey Him, I'm telling you, it stirs some things up in the spirit realm. And the enemy, hear me, will come against you as you stand out and start obeying God. But that's not to bring and evoke fear on our life. It's to say, hey, man, I'm going to stand up and do what God calls me to do, even when it doesn't make sense in the natural. I don't know about you, but if I knew, hey, if I don't worship this God, I'm going to be thrown into a fiery furnace, that's a big deal. I mean, that is not like, hey, somebody's just going to not like me. That is, hey, I'm going to die. Man, these guys were sold out to Yahweh. And I believe God is kind of breathing in fresh life into us as men and women and students and followers of Jesus to say, hey, you obey me no matter what the cost might be, no matter what the price may be. And that's easy to say, sometimes it's hard to do, but this is what I know. I know as we step out and obey God, He is the defender and the protector of our life. He's the one who can allow things to happen or to shut the mouths of the lions in our life. The rest of the story, it continues, and you hear about it throughout the week, but God's hand was on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego because their hearts were committed to Him. I don't know what it is in your world right now that God is speaking to you to step out and obey. It might be something that's difficult, something that's not easy, something that feels a little, oh God, this is tough, can I just encourage you today, step out in obedience. It might not make sense on paper. It might seem a little different compared to culture, but when you step out and obey God, I promise you this, His power and His presence will always show up. John said, like I said earlier, if you want to know you love God, it's not just with our lips, it's with our heart and us following after Him. Hope this is helpful to you today. We love you so much. Be back tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.